Hi, welcome back. I am excited to bake with you today. We are doing something fun, something different. It looks tricky, like you put a lot of work into it, but it's really easy and it only needs an hour rise time, so it's really quick. We are making fugaz, which I thought it was pronounced fougasse, but was corrected that the E is silent, so forgive me, and you can correct me. I don't know many languages. I only know English. So some would say sarcasm also. So if you know how to say it better than me, but from what Google says, it's fugaz. It's out of the book Dough from Richard Bertonet. I have had this book since I was pregnant with Audrey, so 16 years. And I remember I used to make this all the time. And I had my little itty bitty Audrey with her little itty bitty hands, and she would help make this. We would eat it all the time. And then we have moved 5, 6, 7 times since then. So 5, 6 times since then. And this book got packed away and then shoved in with some other. I finally found it and it's like, oh, I remember this. And then I've never made it with freshly milled flour. So we've been going through trying to see what we can do. It took a couple times, but then we finally got it. So because I love this, it is from the heart for me. I want you to do something fun and love it too. So I'm excited to make these today. They're fun because they're shaped like a leaf, but you can make them look like Christmas trees for Christmas time, or ovals to be kind of Easter eggs. You can kind of make it into a cross for Easter too. It's just a really fun, simple bread. There's 5 ingredients, so it's just that good, honest bread flavor that you can eat with, an olive oil dip, or have it with, we had kielbasa soup the other night, which is a tomato-based soup broth, and we dipped it in there, and oh, it was so good. So you can't go wrong with this. And you can add, once you get the hang of it, I always start and do a simple recipe and then add things later. Meats like little bits of pepperoni or sauteed garlic and onion, sun-dried tomatoes. You can just fold it right into the dough before it rises, and then it just adds so much flavors. So you're able to pair it with what you're eating for dinner. I hope that you enjoyed baking this with me today. So let's start baking and having fun and being creative so we can try and look like this, but make it whatever you want. There's no wrong way to do this, which is fun. And this is so fun to do with kids or grandkids. Like, it's just such an interesting bread. And for the kids to get involved, I love kids getting involved with baking because they're more prone to eat the food that they bake, that their little hands were part of making. And the more they're in the kitchen with you, boy, the memories. Can you think back on, good memories of being in the kitchen with your family? Just anything that lends itself to that, boy, I love. So this is, as I was making it, I remembered my sweet little Audrey, who's driving now. She's going to do her grocery shopping right now. So how time flies. Okay, I have yammered on. Let's get going. All right, here are our 5 few ingredients that we need to make this delicious bread. I'm going to start out with hard white wheat, just because the original recipe is made for like that extra sifted light bread flour, and so this is going to taste most like that. Once you've made this a few times, then you can really start adding different things in, using different flours, seeing how you like it. So go crazy. 18 ounces of hard white wheat, and so I'm trying to give lots of measurements here because I've had requests for that. 18 ounces or 512 grams of the berries. I weighed out the berries. Now, when you use berries and you mill it, you will get the same thing. 18 ounces of wheat berries is going to yield you 18 ounces of freshly milled flour. 512 grams of berries, 512 grams of flour. So that's going to be the same. I'm pretty sure that's the same down the line of all the grains you can mill. However, I weighed it out first, and then I tried it with cups. It's 2.5 cups of wheat berries, but don't do 2.5 cups just of flour, because the berries are going to yield you more flour. So I think it ends up being 3.5 cups, 3 3/4 cups, something like that, of the flour. But I would go with weight first if you can. Otherwise, 2.5 cups of the berries is, it's going to get you around there. So I'll just put that right into the mixer. Okay, I veer from him a little bit. I've made it both ways. He does not call for any sort of sweetener to help the yeast. I always like to add a little bit of honey or a little bit of honey granules or sucanat or whatever, some sort of sweetener, whatever you like to use, really helps activate the yeast and get it started. He's very into making this by hand, and he says take your yeast and work it in your fingers, break it up, and then get it in the dough, and then everything he does is by hand. So he's working in the yeast into the stuff, and he says it really gets it going. We have, by nature, a heavier flour because it's got all the goodness of the germ and hull and the minerals and the oils and all the good stuff that we want. So it's heavier. We need all the help we can get just getting it to rise. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, kind of a heaping teaspoon of honey granules, or 5 grams of honey granules. The weight may be different between sucanat or, I'm not sure what other kind of sweetener you want to use. You do not have to use a sweetener if you don't want to. I just choose to. I actually already weighed it out. So, all right, whatever kind of granulated yeast you want to use, quick rise, whatever, any of it's going to work well. I'm using more than he calls for, again, just because the nature of our flour is a little bit heavier. We just need a little bit extra oomph. So I did 1 full teaspoon and 1 just under full, so not quite 2 teaspoons, or it is 6 grams of any sort of yeast. I've never done this with sourdough. If y'all try it with sourdough, let me know how much y'all used and how it came out, because I think it would add a really good flavor to this. We're not going to add the salt quite yet, but I'm going to give you the weights since we're doing all the weights and measurements right now. He says use a fine grained salt. I use Redmond's real salt, and I don't buy the extra fine or the really coarse. I just get the table salt kind. But again, I like the Redmond's because it's not been heat treated, nothing's been stripped from it. It is just all the goodness and nutrients that make salt good for your body, not taking stuff away and making it bad for your body. But it's just, I'd say it's a little bit heavier, maybe a little bit coarser than regular white iodized table salt. But I've used this in here and I've never had a problem. So, if you have extra fine Redmond's, you might want to do that. It's about 6 grams, 2 teaspoons. And then lastly, he doesn't say to use warm water. I'm using 110 degree water because I think warm water works better, especially when you're mixing it in a stand mixer. He does everything by hand, so he's working the warmth of his hands into the dough. I'm working the warmth of the water into the dough and using a stand mixer. He's very into everything by hand, and I think that's great, but with our busy lives and the amount of bread we make, it does not always lend itself to having the time or the energy to do that on the counter. Plus, it's a lot more cleanup. So I am going to slowly pour the water in, and I'll show you, we're going to switch camera angles into this so that it'll mix slowly. This is where our flour differs, because he says add 12.5 ounces of water. And I'm going to add 12.5 ounces so you can see. And then I'm going to show you that we need a lot more. So what I do is add what it says, because I always start a recipe using what it says. And then I'm going to measure out 4 more ounces in another container. And I'm going to add it slowly. We're going to do it together so you can see like what we're looking for. And then I'm going to measure how much I use. I'm going to weigh out the water again at the end to see how much I use. So we'll figure out together how much water we use. So I'll switch the camera angles, and we're going to add 12.5 ounces of water plus some. So we'll figure that out together. All right, so I've kind of mixed everything up. We're going to turn it on and then slowly do 12.5 ounces of warm water. Alright, we're going to let this mix just a little bit, and you can already see there's no way that's enough water. This is going to be a wet dough. Alright. Let's let this go a little bit. Okay, see how it's sticking to the sides? It looks really almost too wet. That's what we want. So I've added 1 extra ounce of water, fluid ounce of water. What we're gonna do is let this rest and soak. And I used to call it an autolyse, and then one of y'all told me that an autolyse is just when water and flour are left to soak and, you know, kind of soften down all the parts of the wheat berry. And a fermentolyse is when everything is in there together. So we're gonna fermentolyse this for 20 minutes. So I always set a timer on my watch so that no matter where I am in the house, because I'm a multitasker. So if I'm out hanging laundry on the line, or if I'm running around vacuuming or trying to pick up stuff, I'll always have my timer with me because sometimes I don't hear it. So I'm gonna cover this, give it a nice warm environment to kind of just soak in there and get everything nice and soft, because the softer all the parts of the wheat berry, like the whole of the wheat berry, if it stays really hard, when the dough is rising and the gluten strands are forming and stretching, the whole of the wheat berry can cut through those strands of gluten and cause it to sink back down. So you could have done absolutely everything right, except maybe that season of wheat berry harvest was just a little bit harder. Maybe not. Maybe you've done bread 100 million times and it's fine, and you just get one season of wheat berries that have a little bit harder of a hole, and then all of a sudden all your dough is not working right. You can't figure it out, and it's just that you need to soften it. So I find with any recipe that calls for that extra fine, extra sifted bread flour, so I'm going to go ahead and just soak this automatically so I know that it'll rise a lot better. So 20 minutes of the fermentolyse, and then we'll be back. All right, so I accidentally added the salt off camera, but add your salt. So I'll pretend so we remember. So we're going to let this mix for maybe 12, 15 minutes, we'll see. But we want it to build so much gluten, so we're going to really let it work and work and work here. As it works in, you'll see that it dries out a bit. So what you think is too much might not be too much water. It's been kneading about 4 minutes now, and we want it to be a good sticky dough. So if I can touch this and it's not really sticking to me, maybe like a itty bitty bit, it's not sticky enough. So I'm gonna add just a little bit, like little drops as it's going. Just a little bit. And then we'll let it knead some more and see how it is. Just the more it kneads, the more it soaks up the water. So in the end, when we're ready to go put it in to rise for an hour, we want it just ever so slightly tacky to your finger. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes and we're getting a little bit dry, so I'm going to add just a bit more water. And then we'll keep going. So I'm going to let this knead 15 minutes or so. This has been going about 14 minutes. This seems, you know, to our minds, no, this is way too sticky. This is exactly what we want. You're going to be surprised with what it looks like after it's proved for an hour. But it sticks to the hands, not crazy, but it does stick to the finger. You'll see a little bit of residue there. That's what you want. So this kneaded a good long time. We're just taking off all the extra. It is sticky, so it sticks a bit. And I don't like to waste anything, so I'm kind of pedantic about it. We're gonna let this prove or rise in a warm oven, no heat turned on. I always just turn the light on. So if you have the ability to turn the light, it kind of warms it up, or however you like to do it, but just a nice draft-free place. We're gonna put it in a different bowl because we need to really oil this bowl down. So I'm using some olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. We're gonna wanna turn out the dough from here, not pull it out. We want it to kind of turn out onto the counter really nicely without releasing any air from it. So you really want to take the time now to get the edges of the bowl oiled. So as it rises, it's not going to stick too much, so that we can really just have it come out on its own nicely. If you happen to have it stuck around the edges, that's okay. We'll just let it, after we shape them, we're going to let them rise a little bit extra all on their own before we bake them. And they do kind of save themselves. They kind of put back up. But if we can avoid having to do an extra step or make it take longer, we try. So as best as you can, oil the sides around really generously because of the sticky dough. It's kind of like the English muffins that we did, you know. So I have my trusty scraper that you can kind of bend to fit. These are just on Amazon. Lots to choose from. So I just kind of wipe all the oil around. Get this turned over so it's got a nice layer on top to keep it nice and moist, because we want to do everything we can to keep our moist dough moist so it doesn't dry out at all. So yeah, this feels like it's nice and oiled here. I've got everything out of here. So I'm going to moisten this towel just a teeny tiny, you know, so if you wring it, no water's going to fall out from it. Just lay it on top, and we want it to double in size. So usually that's about an hour, but don't worry about the time so much. It's just doubled in size. So if it needs a little bit extra, that is okay. That's just the temperature in your house that day. Okay, so I will see you in 1 hour-ish, doubled in size. Our final step in this beautiful artistic process is to shape them and then bake them. So I guess a couple steps. So it's kind of like we're going to treat it like a pizza dough. If you have a pizza peel, that's what you want to use. If you have a pizza stone in the oven, that'd be a great thing, probably the best thing you could bake it on. If you don't have a pizza stone, you're going to need to transfer it into the oven. So you could take a regular like baking pan and just turn it upside down so it just can smoothly slide onto that. You don't need a pizza peel. You can take a flat pan or the bottom of another pan and just kind of slide it onto the one that's in the oven. And I'll show you, how we do it with the pizza peel. Ideally, if you have flat pans like this, something flat in the oven, we're going to put it on here, let it rest a minute, and then we're going to slide it off. We cannot pick it up into the oven and then get it out. If all you have and you feel comfortable doing is making them here and then putting them onto a regular pan and then putting that pan in the oven, that's fine. It just is going to be a little bit crispier on the bottom and we'll have a nice crispy outside and a soft fluffy inside if you can put it into onto something that's already preheated. So ideally, that's the way to go. However you feel comfortable doing it, you do you. It's all good. It's going to be so delicious. So I'm going to show you my way and you can do it however you want. But we're going to put, just like on the bottom of the pizza crusts we made together, we had to put a lot of cornmeal down. This is a sticky dough, and so we don't want it to stick to anything because then as it pulls off and you're working to get it off, it's deflating. So we want to try and just keep as much air in there as possible. So we're going to really put a lot of cornmeal down. This is very affordable in the store, so if I happen to use too much, I'd rather use too much and have fluffy than use too little and have it deflated, Okay, so these are ready to go. Now, usually I say everything, preheat your oven to 450, so have it already heating, so it's a nice hot oven, 450 degrees. Mill some extra flour. I just took a handful of wheat berries and milled it. I don't usually ever sift except when I'm dusting the top or the bottom of something to keep it from sticking, simply because there's a lot of bigger pieces in this, and the fine flour helps it to not stick the most, the easiest, the best. Now, I don't ever waste any of the germ or the bran that comes out of this. I keep it to the side, and then I'll sprinkle it on oatmeal or peanut butter and jelly sandwich, put it in the middle. You get all that good fiber and you don't have to waste it. So I'm not wasting anything, and I'm not saying sift it for the bread, just for the counter to make it really easy for this to come out. Because remember, we want to just tip it over and have it come out and be nice and not stick to anything. So give your counter a really good dusting of flour. You want to see a nice layer of flour on here. And then you see all the bran and germ I have left. I'm just going to keep that to the side and use it later in something else. And any extra flour I have, I usually just use for my sourdough starter. So I don't like to waste anything. Okay, this has risen a bit over an hour. We were hanging clothes on the line, so it took a little bit longer. What we're gonna try and do is just turn it over and have it kind of gently come out all on its own. So let's see if we oiled it well. Mostly. I've got a teeny tiny bit that didn't come off, but that's okay. We'll just add it to the end here. Okay, I'm gonna put my hands, just kind of flour my fingers a little bit. What we're gonna try and do is make a rectangle with minimally bothering the dough. We're just gonna gently try and pull it out a little bit and pull it out a little bit. And it does deflate a little bit, but if you're gently doing it, it's gonna lift itself back up again. So don't worry too much. And then I'm gonna do one like this, and then we'll put the camera on top so you can see more of what we're doing. But we're gonna ideally cut this down the middle, and then if you want to have 4 big ones, just cut it in half. If you like, usually the recipe is for 6 kind of regular size ones, so you're going to cut it 2 lines equal distance. So also tip, this is a sticky bread, so you have a lot of flour on your surface, so just whatever you're cutting with, just kind of dip it in the flour, and that'll help it come off easier. So just a straight line, straight down the middle. It's sticky, so it fights being moved too much here. All right, so I'm gonna take one, and you can see me do it this way. The corners almost make better leaf shapes than the middle, so it's kind of cheating. I'm just gonna move it this way. I'm using a flat side as my base, and then I'm gonna take this side of my cutter. You can use a pizza cutter, you can use a knife, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as it doesn't stick. The only thing we want to worry here is we don't want to cut through any of the holes we make. We don't want to cut through the end. We make the big one in the middle, just make sure it stays intact all the way around the edge. If you accidentally go all the way through, you can squish it together. If you're making an octopus and you want the legs to go out, then totally cut through. But we're going to try just a basic style first, and then you can go crazy. Make sea animals and whatever. So I'm going to make a cut straight up. And then one out. And there's no right way or wrong way. Do whatever you want. The Richard Bertonet said if people try to do a lot of little holes that are very intricate, when it bakes, it tends to go back, so you lose all the holes. So you need to have something you can kind of stretch apart, and then it'll retain the holes in the bake. So you can't get too intricate or it'll lose its shape. But so now I'm just using the corner to make littler cuts, and I'll go like that. All right, so I've made the cuts I want to make, how I think it's pretty. So I'm just kind of widening them, and as easy as you can, put it onto the tray, and there you go. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. Okay, so then I'll set up the tripod so you can see how we do it. So we're going to pat flour down on the side, and for me, the design I'm going for, I'm just going to go straight in the middle. Make that a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to do a little cut. And you kind of work it apart. And a little cut. And a little cut. I'll try and do the same on the other side. My oldest daughter, Audrey, will say I'm copying her design, which I totally am. And I'm trying not to push in, and I just did, but if we let it rest, it will puff back up because it's a nice moist dough. It allows a lot of wiggle room there. Okay, so this is, I'm stretching it out a little bit. And then I'm going to lift it as carefully as I can onto the tray. And then we'll start again. I didn't do a very good job of cutting because these are quite large, but such is life. Let's see. I don't know what I'm doing. We're going with our heart here. What can make that better? Do we need another little one up here? Okay. Well, it is what it is. So ever so gently. All right, so I'm gonna have my kids come and do a couple because it's always really fun. Oh, perfection. All right, our artistic creations have been made, and we have to get these into the oven. So the reason we use the cornmeal is to help it move on the tray easier so nothing's sticking, right? So the way you can check that it's not sticking is shake your tray, and if your beautiful creations can move freely like that, nothing sticks, you're golden, you're ready to go. If you find something is sticking, all you're gonna do is lift up where it is, kick a little more underneath. That's all you need to do. Try not to disturb them, and then check. Okay, good, it's moving, so it's ready to go. If you're not going to use a pizza peel, open your oven and then just shimmy them to the edge till it kind of comes off, and then slide it off and then get out of there as fast as you can. We want the oven to stay hot. If you're going to use a pizza peel, here is a quick lesson by not an expert. I got this in the Walmart section. I think it's was on clearance. The grilling section, $10, I think. I don't know how much it is now. But what we're going to do, there's wooden ones, there's metal ones, they're all kind of the same. You want to put pressure on the front, and you're going to kind of shimmy it back and forth as you're pushing down. So pushing down, shimmy, 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 go underneath. And once you get halfway there, you kind of scoop up and get it on there. And it'll retain enough of the cornmeal that it's going to be slick on this. And then we'll go to the oven, open it, you put the front tip down, the front edge down, and do opposite. Shimmy, 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 and pull out while it's tilted like this. So we tilt, shimmy, 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 get it on, get it up, go over, push it down, get it onto the stone, the pan, whatever you're baking it on, shimmy, shimmy out, and pull out. So it should just slide right off. And my daughter's going to film me doing it. I am not an expert, but here we go. Also, if you had a lot of little helping hands that maybe have pushed down on the dough and you feel like they're not as puffy as you want them, they've been a little deflated, you can just put them back in your somewhere warm, you know, kind of away from draft, and leave it until you feel like it's risen enough. This really does come back quite nicely. So if you need another half hour to let it rise again, go for it. But don't leave them too long because they'll get big. And then when you bake it, if you overproof, things sink in on itself when it's baking because it's gone too far, and then it gets too heavy and falls back down. But I wouldn't go any longer than a half an hour. But like I kind of squished this first one down. These are the ones I did, and they've risen up back again. So it hasn't been that long as it took for 3 people, 4 people, 4 people to do all these. So we'll get a close-up, but here's the distance. I'm pushing down and I'm shimmying. And sometimes you need a little whoop to get it on there. So it's on. It's shimmyable. And then I'm going to put it in the oven, tilt down, shimmy it forward till it catches, and then shimmy it off onto it. I'll show you, don't worry. The last step is as you're closing the door, you're going to get water and spritz, 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 spritz as the door is closing, just to get a nice mist of water in there. So we'll get it in, and then Audrey's going to do a close-up, and then Eva's going to spray the heck out of it in there. So here we go. Watch out, it's very hot. So 450, I'll just go on the bottom one. I'm aiming the front of it down, shimmying it out. There we go. Here's the next, oh, no, wait. So I'm going to close this while I'm waiting. I'm pushing down, shimmy, 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 till it won't go up anymore, and then I kind of work it on there. Pizza's a little bit easier because it's one solid piece. Yeah. I'm going to aim it down towards the back because it's going to stop, you know, where you first get it on there. Slide it out. Okay, spray, 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 spray. Spray, 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 spray. Yeah. All right. So we're going to bake about 9 minutes. All right. It's been 8.5 minutes, and I feel like they're dark enough. So I'm just, and it's so much easier when they're baked. You just get underneath it. So I'm aiming down, and then I'm just going to scoop And then as I'm getting this on, I'm going to keep the heat in, aim down. Okay, so it moves. So I'm going down, tilting down, shaking it off and sliding this out, aiming down. Just kind of dropping it in. All right. Oh, spray, 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 spray. Spray, 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 spray. Perfect. All right, so these are our final product baked. And I wanted to say, you can see, I like it. I think it's a neat texture. You can see the gluten strands and how they formed. I really like that. If you don't, when you make your initial thing with the dough and you do all your lines and you're ready to transfer it, just flip it over and then the smooth side will be what's baked and big. But you can brush off all the cornmeal, and you can see these are so lovely, all different shapes, so crisp. And then while it's close up, I'll show you just how lovely. Whoo, it's hot, 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 hot on the inside. Nice and light and fluffy. Beautiful, beautiful bread. Perfect for dipping, having with dinner, good as an appetizer. All right, we have our taste testers here. If you want to dip, Audrey made a delicious oil dipping sauce with garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and some salt, and then just the extra light olive oil for tasting. What do we think? Yummy? Crispy on the outside and so light and fluffy on the inside. These are delicious. And then it's kind of funny, if you have people coming over or whatever, if you have one of those freestanding old mug stands, you can kind of hang these on the mug stands and do real cute things. You know, these are fun for holidays or just gatherings. There's all kinds of things you can add into it to make it yummy and ways to display them. And they bake, you know, these baked in about 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes. If you like them darker or a little bit crispier, then you can bake them longer, you know, and this is what my oven was. It might be a little bit less or more pending your oven, but yeah, you could have the dough all ready to go, and when people come over, they can make theirs. You know, if you have a more crafty set of folks coming over that like to do things like that, you know, and then it just takes just a minute to bake. They cool off pretty quickly, and then you can enjoy them together. So I just think this is such a fun little thing to have, and you know, it looks kind of fancy and hard, but it's not. So you can go crazy with all different kinds of designs, and it's really forgiving dough. So if you squish it down, let it rise back up a little bit. If the dough seems dry even towards the end of you mixing it in the mixer, you can still add water towards the end of it. And then I think we had 12.5 ounces of water to start with, and then we added 2.5 ounces of water to it to make this dough. So yours might be a little bit more or less, but you saw what the dough should look like. So as you're adding your water, add it slowly, and then you'll see, you know, the amount of stick to your finger that it should give you, that you saw in the video. So yummy.
Yeah, it even tastes good without the stuff on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do when we're driving in the car. We have one day a week where we go like 45 minutes in the car. I just bring bread with me with no butter, whether it's our everyday loaf or an English muffin, or, you know, these, you can just eat them in the car. It's like healthy snacking because you're getting your good nutrients and vitamins and good fiber and everything. So we often are the weird people that don't have, you know, prepackaged snacks. We have our own homemade ones. But I miss y'all, and I'm so happy to be doing videos again. And I want you to know I'm absolutely praying for you. I love commenting with y'all and seeing how you're doing. And you know, if you try the recipes, let me know. I'm really excited to see how they go. If you have any questions, I will try and answer them. Sometimes I don't get the questions. There's no notification, so I apologize. I don't ever leave anything out. I just may not see it. So I do my best. I hope y'all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.